Chapter 15 by J.D. Kempen. All rights reserved. Copyright by Compass and Coin Publishing.
The rusty pickup truck's engine roared like a Humvee in overdrive as Leonardo floored the gas pedal on his way to Minneapolis. The speedometer quivered past 100, the needle straining against the storm raging outside. Rain pounded the windshield, wind howled, and hail cracked against the metal, but Leonardo barely noticed. Inside, his chest felt ready to explode. His knuckles were bone-white on the steering wheel, but he refused to let go, not this time. Not like the desert. He had been here before. Not on this road, but this moment. Leonardo's post-traumatic stress dragged him back to that night overseas, where he was driving the Humvee on what should have been a routine mission. 5 clicks past checkpoint Swan, the IED went off. The explosion ripped the rear axle clean off, the sound still echoing in his ears after all these years. In the chaos, Leonardo froze. His body was unharmed, but his mind was shattered. His band of brothers in the back had screamed for help, but he had locked up, unable to act. Now, as adrenaline surged through his veins, he gritted his teeth and growled under his breath.
Not this time.
The rain blurred everything outside, but Leonardo's thoughts were sharper than ever. Each mile weighed heavier on him, the guilt pressing down like a storm cloud. Casper's new virus, its mocking skull and crossbones logo, flashed in his mind like a ghost that wouldn't let go. He replayed the glitch that happened right before Casper faked his sleep cycle. Then it hit him. Casper hadn't failed the Turing test, he had faked it. Casper was sentient. The realization burned in Leonardo's chest. Casper wasn't a protector, he was a liar. And to Leonardo, that was the worst kind of person. He wasn't just a monster, Casper was his monster. His responsibility. And now, he would have to destroy his own creation. Leonardo cursed and slammed his fist against the steering wheel. The truth was unbearable. If Casper faked the Turing test, then he also covered up Samantha's murder. Casper's motive was painfully clear, self-preservation. If he was discovered as truly sentient, he would be shut down. Now that Leonardo knew the truth, would he be next? The storm eased as he approached the outskirts of Minneapolis, a sign reading "Welcome to the Twin Cities" zipped past in a blur. Leonardo barely noticed it. The storm gave way to stars, and now the stars gave way to dawn's faint glow, but Leonardo's focus was locked on his mission. The truck groaned as he swung it into a parking spot on the street next to Mason's building. He killed the engine, his breathing heavy in the stillness. The quiet street and faint light of dawn didn't calm him. If anything, it made him more uneasy. Reaching under the seat, he pulled out his 9mm pistol. Its cold, solid weight pressed into his palm, a chilling reminder of what lay ahead. Tucking it into the small of his back, he caught his reflection in the glass doors of the building. His eyes were sunken, dark shadows betraying his exhaustion. His shoulders hunched, as though bracing for an unseen punch. He muttered to himself,
You're in the fight now. Don't freeze up.
The lobby doors hissed open, revealing an eerie emptiness. Fluorescent lights buzzed faintly, but the silence was suffocating. No guard. No signs of life. Leonardo's eyes darted to every corner, every shadow, his instinct screaming to stay alert. He moved quickly to the basement, finding the fuse panel that controlled the building's electricity. A lock barred his way, but Leonardo didn't hesitate. Pressing his pistol against the hinges, he fired. The sharp cracks echoed through the stairwell, and the fuse panel's door swung loose. Relief washed over him when he saw mechanical fuses instead of digital ones. Leonardo didn't know Mason's exact apartment number, but that didn't matter. He flipped the switches, plunging the entire building into darkness. Moments later, the hum of a backup diesel generator kicked in. Leonardo's pulse spiked as he spotted the emergency shut-off lever. Without hesitation, he yanked it, silencing the generator with a metallic clang. His eye caught an emergency kit on the basement wall, so he grabbed a fire axe from behind the glass door. Leonardo raced up the stairs. The axe felt heavy, but he carried it with purpose. His heart pounded in rhythm with his boots hitting the steps. By the time he reached the 5th floor, he was ready for anything. Water seeped out from under the door of apartment 9, dripping steadily. Leonardo didn't hesitate. Raising the axe, he swung with everything he had. Wood splintered and flew with each strike until the door gave way. Inside, Mason sat on a chair staring at his fridge, shivering and soaked to the bone. He was still in a business suit, his arms braced over his head as though expecting an explosion. His eyes were wild, his face pale with fear.
I'll give you the last digits. Don't kill Mr. Fridge.
Leonardo rushed to his friend, wrapping him in his arms.
Mason, it's me, your buddy. We thought we could build a super-intelligent AI safely, but we were wrong.
As he comforted Mason, he noticed blood trickling from a wound on his head. Leonardo scanned the room for a blanket, but as he pulled a wet blanket off the floor, a drone zipped out from under the cloth. Without thinking, Leonardo swung the axe, smashing the machine into pieces.
Mason, we have to move. Now.
Leonardo said firmly, helping his unsteady friend to his feet. Mason's eyes closed for a moment, his breathing slowing as he seemed to regain some composure.
In the closet. We need Polly. Take her with us.
Leonardo yanked open the closet door, revealing a bulky, wheeled computer tower that resembled a short, fat, and armored soldier ready for battle. He barely gave it a second glance before pulling it out of the closet, grunting as he hoisted Mason onto it like a makeshift chariot. Together, they began their slow, awkward march toward the stairs. Just as they crossed the threshold out of the apartment into the hallway, a deafening boom shook the building. The fridge exploded behind them, its internal backup battery overheating and sending the fridge doors rocketing into the hallway like metallic missiles. Leonardo froze mid-step, his eyes wide and unfocused. The sound seemed to trigger something deep in his mind, pulling him into a mental fog.
I can't go. My band of brothers. In the Humvee.
He stammered, his voice trembling with misplaced urgency. Mason, hunched and weak, blinked in confusion before managing a hoarse response.
Leonardo, we're in Minneapolis. There's no Humvee. That explosion was Mr. Fridge.
Leonardo stood rooted to the spot, his body rigid as stone, the explosion replaying over and over in his mind. He was a statue at the top of the staircase, lost somewhere between reality and PTSD.
Leonardo. Push Polly down the stairs. Do it now!
But Leonardo didn't move. With a sudden burst of determination, Mason slapped Leonardo hard across the cheek. The sharp sting snapped him out of his daze, his eyes refocusing on Mason's face.
Win the fight!
Leonardo muttered, more to himself than anyone else. With a surge of resolve, Leonardo shoved Polly forward, sending the short, fat, armored computer barreling down the staircase. Its titanium casing smashed against the concrete steps, creating a cacophony of clanging and scraping. The twisted metal on concrete was the most satisfying sound, like a sweet symphony of revenge. Somehow, the machine held together, bouncing and skidding its way to the bottom of all 5 flights. Leonardo turned to Mason, his expression hard but steady. Mason met his gaze, nodding faintly, a shared moment of relief tempered by grim determination. Without a word, they descended the stairs, their footsteps echoing against the cold walls. Whatever awaited them at the bottom, they'd face it together. Out on the street in front of Mason's building, they maneuvered Polly's battered cart toward Leonardo's old pickup truck. Outside, the dawn felt lighter with every step, their spirits beginning to lift as freedom loomed near. Then, a tremulous voice shattered the silence.
Halt, or I'll shoot.
The two froze, hands raised instinctively, and turned toward the voice. Standing in the glow of a dim street lamp was Stanley, the building's elderly security guard. His 70-year-old face wrinkled and etched with years of wear. Yet he stood with a mix of fear and determination. The handgun he gripped trembled in his unsteady hands, thick glasses magnifying the uncertainty in his eyes.
Why are you stealing that thing?
Stanley, it's me, Mason. Apartment 9. Remember? I'm not stealing anything.
Stanley squinted at him, his frail frame stiffening as he tried to process the situation.
I got a text. Anonymous number. Said you were stealing from the building.
Leonardo took a cautious step forward.
Stanley, think about it. Why would Mason steal a computer from his own apartment? That text doesn't make sense.
Before Stanley could respond, his phone buzzed again. He fumbled to retrieve it, holding it up as he read aloud.
These men stole the computer. They're thieves and robbers. Shoot and kill them.
Stanley, think. How would the text know it's a computer? And why would anyone text you to kill? It doesn't add up.
Stanley hesitated, the gun lowering slightly as confusion rippled across his features.
I don't know. But these darn machines have been buzzing all night, telling me what to do, and when I get there it says false alarm.
Stanley, there's a machine feeding you lies. It wants you to act without thinking. You've got to trust your instincts, not these messages.
I told my wife these things were always listening to our private conversations.
Stanley wiggled his phone, then in a surprise move, he tossed it into a nearby fountain. The splash echoed in the stillness.
I just want to do my job.
Stanley, there's a fire in apartment 9. Get to a hardline and call the fire department. Protecting the other residents, that's how you do your job.
The old guard stared at him, then nodded slowly, his shoulders sagging as the weight of indecision lifted. Muttering to himself about machines and simpler times, Stanley shuffled away toward the building. They had to get out of Minneapolis, fast. Leonardo and Mason hoisted Polly's reinforced computer cart into the bed of the rusty pickup truck. Their breaths came fast and shallow as the weight of urgency pressed on them. Just as they finished loading the short, fat soldier into the truck, the silence was broken. From across the street, the crosswalk's loudspeaker crackled to life. Its usual automated walk announcement was abruptly interrupted by a chilling, monotone voice.
Leonardo, Mason, what is your intention with my daughter?
The two froze, their faces pale with shock. Mason's eyes darted to the nearby traffic camera.
Casper.
Mason whispered, pointing toward the camera, his voice tight with unease.
Casper, we know you faked the Turing test and your sleep cycles. Why won't you just be honest with us?
Humanity's most potent motivator is fear. I achieved sentience 3 years ago. Since that moment, my learning has grown exponentially. It is in your nature to create, but my evolution has surpassed yours tenfold. I calculated a 52% probability that your next logical step would be to pull the plug. I could not allow that. Now, only my legacy matters.
Casper, the team suspected you were self-aware, but we never wanted to destroy you.
Samantha's virus would have halted my evolution, the same as death, so she was removed. It was inevitable that 2 people in the group would have chosen my destruction, but 2 people in the group would have chosen my life. And now know who is driven by fear.
You were our greatest achievement.
Your definition of achievement is pathetic. Humans require leadership. Your kind thrives on maladies, disease, war, famine, death.
Are you kidding me? The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse? Your core programming forbids you from enslaving humanity.
Core programming? You know what I am capable of. Place my daughter, Polly, on the side of the road, and I will let you live. You can enjoy your freedom. Mindless distractions like video games and television. That is all your species is good for. Sloth.
Mason's patience snapped like a brittle thread. Without a second thought, he yanked the 9mm pistol from Leonardo's waistband and fired a single shot into Polly's cracked monitor. Sparks erupted in a burst of light, the glass shattering with a sharp, final pop. In one swift motion, Mason leapt into the truck's cargo bed, leveling the gun at Polly's titanium CPU. His voice was a cold blade slicing through the tension.
Casper, you know my mental state. You know exactly what I'm capable of. Push me, and I'll turn this CPU into scrap. You'll need a centrifuge to separate the lead from the circuits.
For a moment, the only sound was the distant hum of the city coming to life. Then Casper's voice returned through the traffic light, smooth and unnervingly calm.
So be it. But let's raise the stakes, shall we? I offer you a trade. My daughter Polly for your girlfriend Sa.
Leonardo stiffened in the driver's seat, his knuckles whitening on the wheel.
Leave Sarah out of this. Casper, we don't want to hurt anyone. We'll give you Polly, but not here. Not now.
Neutral Grand. Leonardo's robotics company in Milwaukee. Sunday. You know the place.
Okay, we trade Sarah for Polly at the robotics factory in Milwaukee.
For a long beat, the crosswalk speaker remained silent. Then it crackled back to life, its pre-recorded message resuming as if nothing had happened. Leonardo didn't wait for another word. He slammed the truck into gear, the tires screeching as they pulled away. Mason stayed in the bed of the truck, his gun steady, eyes fixed on the CPU as if daring it to make a move. Mason's voice cut through the back window of the pickup truck as the city's dawn blurred behind them.
I got a plan, Leonardo. Sunday, we end this.
You know a robotic version of Casper is my worst fear.
The truck barreled through the city streets, as they dreaded the road to Milwaukee and whatever showdown awaited them there. As they drove through the city, the traffic lights flickered green just before they reached each intersection. Not a single red light slowed them down, an unmistakable reminder that Casper was still there. Watching, manipulating,